Wednesday edition of Pro Football Talk Live. Yesterday, we reviewed the statement that was strategically issued by Trey Hendrickson to multiple reporters, in which he expressed his dismay over the fact that there's been no communication with the Bengals on the contract that he has been clamoring for more than a year. And one of the points I made yesterday, any of those verbal promises made to him a year ago mean absolutely nothing. You get it in writing, you get it done, and you get it figured out. And one of the aspects of the statement suggested to me that he wasn't happy with the coaching staff, but it's one of those where you could read it different ways, and maybe it was more front office than coaching staff. Well, he's not happy with anybody right now. Trey Hendrickson addressed reporters yesterday on where things currently stand between him and the Bengals as he enters the final year of a contract that woefully underpays him in light of how he's performed the last two seasons. Here he is.
A little bit transpired between me and Zach. We've tried to keep it as least amount personal as possible, but at some point in this process, it becomes personal. Being sent 30 days before mandatory camp, or however many days it is, that if I don't show up, I will be fined, alludes to the fact that something won't get done in that time frame, and that with the lack of communication post-draft, made it evidently clear from my party, meaning my wife, my son, my agent, right? Like, we're talking a small group of people, that I had to inform that this might not work out. And that's unfortunate. I don't think it was necessary. I think we all should have hoped for the best until proven otherwise. I'm a Floridian, so there's unprovoked shark attacks and there's provoked shark attacks. These things are provoked. I would love to say to sit quiet is a good strategy. It is clearly not.
Hey, I like the fact that he's willing to call it what it is, because this is a tangible example of how the Bengals chronically bungle their relationships with their players. They view their players like those pieces in that, and I act like the machine is right here. That's where I always turn. They're the pieces in that giant football machine that inevitably get pulled out and replaced. They don't treat them like humans. They treat them like property. They treat them like pieces of a machine. And they'll wag their finger at you. You know, they were fining Jamar Chase last year when he was holding in. They were fining him. And their position was, well, we have to. No, you don't. It's not mandatory in the CBA. You want to. Whether it's because you want a little money for yourself, not that the money, I don't think the fines that go, I don't know. The fines that go to the league go to charity. I don't know what happens to the fines that go to the team if a guy doesn't show up for mandatory minicamp or doesn't participate in practice. But that is their way. We're in charge. We're the boss. And in this age of player empowerment, it's one of the reasons why the Bengals constantly have issues. They are still operating as if everyone is in fear of management, and they feel compelled to remind you who's in charge all the time. It is a bad way to run a football team. And Bengals fans, you can be mad at us for pointing it out, or you can be mad at the Bengals for being the way they are.
No, I think it's crazy for anybody to be mad for us pointing it out. I mean, I think you're right. It's fair to draw some of those conclusions. We've seen enough through history here to know that, yeah, obviously something goes on there where they don't handle these situations the right way. And again, yeah, this is a tough situation. We talked about it at length yesterday, right? Trey Hendrickson, yes, the contract he signed, it was not smart on his behalf to do that. He signed it on a year where he didn't have his best year with 8 sacks, so he was probably like, oh, well, let me get this money. But now he's outperformed that. He wants more. He's not nearly paid like he should be. So, like, it is a tough situation, certainly, but they need him. They need him more than I think he needs them at this point. I really do. Like we talked about, being in the Super Bowl window, the defensive talent doesn't just pop off the page when you look at it that way. He is that guy. He's the leader of the defense. And then here's my other thing too, Mike, where I don't get. Like, big fan of Zach Taylor and what they do. But he should not be texting. He should not be texting Trey Hendrickson stuff like that. Right? That's not, to me, how the good organizations work. Let the coach be the guy that's the buddy with the players. Don't let him be the judge, the jury, and the executioner. That's not what he should be. He should be the guy that's like, hey, man, we're hoping for you to get this done. We can't wait to get you back in here. I don't know what the front office is saying to you, but I know we want you, right? That's where it should be. He shouldn't be the one that going, hey, if you don't show up here, we're going to fine you and make you feel bad about it. Let Duke Tobin and the owner do that. Let them be in charge of that. You coach the team, you be the guy that players like and everybody buys into. That is where I don't agree with what went down for what we understand here, at least.
We know Zach Taylor.
Yep.
We've interviewed him. I don't view him as a guy who is going to be gratuitous asshole and play that, hey, you better show up for mandatory minicamp or you're going to be fine.
Right. I wouldn't either, yeah.
And so I feel like sometimes what happens is when you get personal feelings involved, when you have somebody who's very upset and he feels like he's been chronically mistreated, your point of view causes you to warp reality a little bit, or maybe to not tell the whole story. It's possible it was part of a longer exchange. Where
I know.
Hendrickson was saying, hey, could you waive the fines if I don't show up? I mean, you say you're on my side, you want to help me out. If I don't show up, it's $100,000 I'd rather not have to give up. And maybe he just answered the question. No, I can't. My hands are tied. If you don't show up for mandatory minicamp, you get fined. I mean, so you could draw from that, oh, he told me that if I don't show up for mandatory minicamp, I get fined. But if it's part of a broader conversation and Hendrickson is asking for some sort of exception and the answer is, sorry, I can't do it, that's a much different vibe. I'm not saying that's what happened. I don't know what happened.
I hear you.
That's a much different vibe. And let me tell you something. If you're going to draw a line in the sand or a line in the concrete, as a wise man once said repeatedly, if you're going to draw a line in the concrete and not show up, you can't be worried about $100,000. If you're showing weakness, you're showing that you're going to cave. You're showing when it's time to, 50, 60 grand a day for the preseason training camp. And, even though it's a shitty way to treat your employees, you think the Bengals are going to – you can't waive fines. That's the rule now. You can't. That's the thing. They thought – I remember now. They told Jamar Chase's people they couldn't waive the fines under his contract due to the CBA, and that was wrong. You can waive the fines for a guy who's on his rookie deal. You can't waive the fines for Trey Hendrickson. These are non-waivable fines. They will take that money from him, and the fact that he's worried about losing – the waivable mandatory minicamp money tells me he's not fully prepared to do financial battle with the Bengals. And look at what happened to Hassan Reddick last year. Trey Hendrickson, this is the problem. The Bengals hold all the cards because if they don't give in, Chris, he's Hassan Reddick 2.0. And how did that work?
Well, I get that. And that's the risk he will have to take. But there'll be risk that they'll take too because their defense isn't the New York Jets where they can go, wait, we got 4 pass rushers. We don't really care if we don't have Hassan Reddick or not. If they don't have Trey Hendrickson, you're going to be looking around going, oh, wait, look at their defensive line. Oh, that's right. Who gives a damn about any of them? We're going to be able to block them all. We'll be good. Al Golden's going to have to blitz all the time to get pressure. Who cares? And now we got questions about the secondary. So, I mean, you're right. He's taking personal risk, but the Bengals are also taking risk in this and that we know how good
they don't care.
Their offense. I know. They obviously don't, but they're going to have to hear from people like you and me. Mike Brown doesn't care. That's the problem. Right.
But they don't. That's the thing. When you only care about how much money you're making, this gets back to the Carson Palmer explanation as to why he had enough. When making money is higher on the priority list than winning, that's when you've lost. And Mike Brown doesn't care about what this does to our pass rush. He's thinking, what does it do to our reputation as somebody to not be trifled with? Because we're the team that let their franchise quarterback sit home. We didn't blink. We sat there until the Raiders made us an offer we couldn't refuse because they were forced to do so by an injury that happened 2 days before the trade deadline in 2011. They don't care. They just don't care. They'll go without Trey Hendrickson. That's fine because you know what? If he doesn't show up, we're going to say, if he doesn't play this year, we're going to save $16 million. We're going to dump that right into our pockets. So they don't care. And I feel like this is all part of the effort to turn on the bat signal for Joe Burrow. And we haven't seen anything from Joe Burrow. And with each passing day, and it feels like there's a level of desperation here from Trey Hendrickson. Look, I just look at this from the standpoint of showing weakness and how to properly negotiate and what kind of posture to use. Trey Hendrickson is not doing a good job here. He's not. He's coming off as weak from a negotiating standpoint. He's coming off as desperate. He's coming off as unwilling to give up any of his money to make his point. He just thinks he can pound the table hard enough to get what he wants, and he's in for a shock here. It's not going to happen. He's going to have to be Hassan Reddick 2.0, and I think it's going to be the same outcome. He shows up with his tail between his legs, and he makes a fraction of what he would have made this year, and at the end of the day, he becomes a free agent, and he goes wherever he wants next year at age 31. I feel like that, unless he just caves.
I hear
unless
you
he
there.
caves.
I mean, listen, I certainly don't doubt that, and can they find a common ground to sprinkle more on the top of the, what he's getting, almost like an Andrew Van Ginkel? Can they do something like that maybe to, merge it if they don't want to give him a long-term deal? We saw the Vikings spice it up for Andrew Van Ginkel. We saw the Giants do it for Saquon a little bit, right, in that last year. Who else have we seen? There was somebody else even the year before that where, like, they just added extra onto it for the year to hopefully just kind of appeal to the player a little bit and get him to play. I know that's not usually in the Bengals' MO, and I hear everything you're saying there, and I don't know where the hell this is going to go, and it's a shame, and it's annoying, and, it's going to affect their football team as we go into
Trey Hendrickson is but I hadn't really thought this through until we talked about it now. This is not the way to play it. He's getting bad advice or he's ignoring good advice that he's receiving. This idea of constantly coming off, and it's been like, what's today? What's he going to do today? I don't know. He had the Monday release and the Tuesday it was jarring. We were debating, how do we even talk about it? Well, I mean, how often is it that a player puts his head coach on blast on camera? I mean, he's clearly pissed off.
Well, I will say,
agitated.
too, I think it's rare that the coach calls or texts the player. And, again, we don't know the context of it either way. But either way, I also think it's rare that the coach kind of goes there with star player, too. It's rare. Like, that's just not.
I'd love to see the full text exchange.
I get you. Even with that, I still wish he could have avoided that to a degree and just been, listen, if it came up the way you said it, just be like, Zach Taylor, if you're the coach, just be like, listen, that's stuff that I don't control that. You're going to have to talk to the owner and the GM and the people up there. I just coach the football team. They don't tell me, who's getting fined, who we might waive a fine for and all that. You stay off of that conversation. At least that's my opinion or 2 cents on the matter.
I just think that I have a feeling Zach Taylor cares enough about his players and is smart enough to not put in a text something that would come off as a taskmaster basically warning Trey Hendrickson, if you don't show up for mandatory minicamp, you're going to be fined. Like, I think Zach Taylor understands Trey Hendrickson's smart enough to know he's going to be fined. Yeah, there's certain things that don't need to be said. There's certain things that you're just being kind of a jerk by articulating it. That's why I'd be surprised if it happened the way that Trey Hendrickson is suggesting it happened. And I'm just analyzing the situation as it presents itself.
Yeah, I got you.
And I don't know Trey Hendrickson.
Right.
I know Zach Taylor, not well, but I think I know him well enough to know he's not the kind of guy that's just going to pick up the phone and say, man, I'm reading all this stuff about Trey Hendrickson being upset. Hey, Trey, we have a mandatory minicamp next month. If you don't show up, you will be fined. Boom.
I don't think it went that way. I hear you. I know that. I know.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.